you.
Welcome back, everyone, to a karate kickin' episode of Backlot Banter. I'm your host, Tanner Drexler, joined, as always, by one of my bestest friends in the whole wide world, Tucker Hazel. Tucker, we are here to talk about Shang-Chi in the Legend of the Ten Rings, the newest and hottest movie from Marvel. Have you heard of these guys, Marvel? They put up some pretty good
couple
stuff.
movies, right?
But we talk about a lot of their movies. In fact, if you want to hear more of that, you should subscribe to this channel, Backlog Banter. You should give this a like. Why not?
Why not?
You know?
Well,
You comment below your thoughts on the movie Shang-Chi. We'll let us know yours. We'll let you know our thoughts in this video. That's why you clicked on it. Yeah. Tucker, what did you think of Shang-Chi? A movie that we saw twice this weekend. By the way.
Contributing to that ever-growing box office number, kicking the previous record for Labor Day weekend box office record.
True.
Yeah.
Yes.
But I have come out of this film in a couple of minds. And the first time I saw it, I was a little bit underwhelmed. Actually, I was a little bit overwhelmed in terms of how much stuff was introduced, which I think is part of the movie's one of its biggest problems in terms of its pacing and how many things it throws at you. But the second time around, having a little bit more context, having known where the story was going, I was able to pick up on more character moments and feel out the story a little bit better. So second time around, I enjoyed it quite a bit more. It's not one of my favorite Marvel movies. I think it's personally for me somewhere in the middle tier, but there's a lot of cool stuff here, and it does get me very excited for the future, though this film itself is pretty flawed in a lot of areas.
Yeah, I feel a lot of the same way. From the first time to the second time watching it, my rating didn't change at all. My thoughts on it evolved slightly, whereas I found more things to like about it the second time, and there's a lot to like about this movie, as you've probably been told by other folks who really enjoy this movie on the internet. But
we're on the lower end of the spectrum.
We are.
We're out there.
We're bringing a bit of negativity and maybe some nuance to this discussion, but we try our best here. But like Tucker said, I think this movie is kind of a death by 1,000 cuts in terms of its flaws for me, is that every aspect of the movie, I kind of find something that I don't really like, and those just kind of mount on top of each other. But Tucker, I don't want to be a negative Nelly this whole episode. Let's talk about what we liked. Only for most of it. Let's talk about what we liked from Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings.
I don't want to say that full name every time, but this movie has not only a long title, but a lot of really awesome fight sequences. And I think that's where the movie shines its brightest. It's got its most unique feel in those moments where it's just crazy, like long take kung fu action, and it goes balls to the wall crazy with it. And that's probably my personal favorite aspect of it is we've gotten so used to Marvel having a very specific styling to their fight sequences, lots of quick editing, lots of lasers being shot out of every which place they can be. This has on the whole almost none of that. No lasers in this movie.
There's some beams of energy that are mostly saved for the latter half of this film, but for a majority of it, for those first two action sequences, that one on the bus is a strong opener. That's a great one. The stuff on the side of the building in Macau is great. So for a majority of the fight sequences in this movie are great, and they differentiate themselves from like even some more grounded stuff like in Winter Soldier. In that
I like this a lot more.
Yes, the fighting style feels unique, which is really an issue for me, because in the MCU everyone knows a little bit of martial arts. Everybody's doing a punch and a side kick and a flip, but they managed to make Shang-Chi feel unique in how he uses these, and even his fighting style evolves over the course of this film.
It does.
He starts off, very much like punching and kicking and doing that sweet split kick thing that he does on the two guys on the bus.
Cool.
It's so cool. But that's mostly a product of his father, Wenwu, Tony Leung. Shout out.
Hey, friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Tony Leung. And obviously it evolves later because he gets some training from Michelle Yeoh, his aunt, not. Just seeing that evolution and still making it feel unique throughout the runtime is a great move on the fight choreographers for this film.
Yeah, and I think the uniqueness of this is also not hampered, but bolstered by what I think is one of the coolest weapons in the MCU period is the 10 rings themselves.
Oh yeah.
When they're used, which is relatively sparingly, unfortunately, I wish we'd seen a lot more of them. Though we will in the future as Shang-Chi spoilers. This is a spoiler review, by the
Yeah.
way.
By the way.
Now has the 10 rings himself and will be using them in future fights. But man, those things are cool. They can kind of just do whatever they need to. They can boost someone up in the air. They can be shot off like projectiles, turn into whips. They can be used as shields. They can grab things.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild, but they have fantastic sound design with the rings like sliding back onto arms and using it to like bolster kicks and punches. And I think Shang-Chi even one time uses it to like platform through the air. And it's just like, I don't know what's happening, but it's so visually interesting and so fluid and so creative. This is a weapon type we've never seen before in anything. And it's entirely unique to the movie as well. The 10 rings in the comics are actual rings that give them
they just shoot beams.
Yeah, they just do different elements.
And I've seen people complaining that they changed them a little bit.
This so much better. So much cooler, man.
It is much more dynamic than just shooting beams from your hands.
Yeah.
Being able to use them in all the different ways. But one of my favorites is when it's that final fight sequence between Shang-Chi and Wenwu. And Wenwu uses them as like an arm guard to block, and Shang-Chi uses them as like a shin guard down to kick, and they clang together.
Oh, so cool.
A lot of the fight sequences great. Should we talk about the story of this film, the story of Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings? I'm going to say the full title every time.
That's a terrible decision on your part.
But something an issue that both you and I had with it is sort of the pacing of this and how the flashbacks are sort of woven in with the straightforward narrative of the film. And I did really feel that, especially on a second viewing, because those flashbacks can go on for an extended period of time.
They're pretty long.
And having seen the movie already, I'm like, okay, I want to get back to Simu. I want to get back to the good stuff, the molto bene stuff. But what are your thoughts about the whole pacing and the flashbacks in this film?
I think the pacing issue for me comes from the fact that they are introducing so much stuff in this movie, and a lot of it is good stuff, but it ends up feeling very rushed in from sequence to sequence. Inside of sequences, they're totally fine, but when you're cutting from the bam, like someone finishes a line, the sequence ends. All right, we're on to something new. It jumps straight there. There's very little transitory sequences. It gets a little overwhelming, and especially because those in a normal movie that is told linearly, you would have transitory sequences between the larger ones, but this covers those places over with flashbacks, which makes it jump around a lot in terms of time, and you have to always be on your toes in terms of, okay, this is what Shang-Chi learned when he was a kid, and his mom is alive here but not then, and it's all woven together, which I think gives an interesting history to Shang-Chi as a character, because you're able to see him throughout all these stages of his life. But I think that does pretty much kneecap the pacing in terms of jumping from scene to scene. I feel it can be pretty choppy.
Yeah. And the thing is that those are largely saved for the latter half of this film when they show up at Wenwu's compound. The first half of this film is very good, very, very good. My favorite, if they could extend, that pacing, that charisma of the first 50% of this film, basically up until Wenwu gets them from Macau and takes them to his compound. If they could extend that out,
I would say that's really the first act. That's the first third right there. The first third is San Francisco and Macau.
Sure.
And the middle act is them in the compound, and the end is when they're in Talo.
Sure. Okay.
Does that balance out?
Yeah. So the first third. Maybe I was giving this film too much credit.
Yeah.
But no, because even that compound stuff isn't that bad. But that first third, like you said, when they're in San Francisco and we're getting established, Awkwafina is actually really funny and likable in this, as opposed to her previous role this year as Dragon in Raya and the Last Dragon.
Oh yeah, I don't know what that dragon's name was.
Shifu or something, right? Something like that.
No, that's from Kung Fu Panda.
That's right.
Yeah.
But anyway, that first third is great. It has, like I said, it has a great charisma to it. Simu Liu is firing on all cylinders, being this funny, charismatic guy. He's throwing punches in the bus and stuff, and he has great chemistry with Awkwafina as well.
Yeah,
which is why I appreciate the fact that she is there throughout, because I don't think that chemistry really falters at any point. you just get less of it as they sort of diverge in their roles in the story,
Yeah, and I
especially
think
towards the end.
on the true, yes. I think on the whole, one of this movie's greatest strengths is the fact that it has a pretty large ensemble cast that are all given a pretty divided amount of screen times in terms of it's balanced. The Mandarin Wenwu, he's Tony Leung is fantastic. Personally,
Yes.
I think he's one of the most interesting Marvel villains in terms of him feeling sympathetic in his motivation and his relationship with his son, and having this entire history to the character that's just off the charts in terms of time scale. That's all really cool, and seeing how he relates back to his sister Jia and how her relationship builds with Katie, and the history between Shang-Chi and Jia like is unveiled throughout the entire movie. I think that's all fantastic. Unfortunately, I think it's just a little bit it sticks out like a sore thumb in the Marvel movies, which are so focused in solo movies on this is this character. You will know who's the main character. Everyone else will be like C tier in terms of screen time. So I think it's just different. I don't know if it's really worse, but I definitely felt like we didn't get a lot of just focus on seeing Simu Liu as Shang-Chi.
Yes.
Show his emotions, interact with sequences, get his personality out a little more, because it was either he was in a flashback where it wasn't Simu Liu as a younger person, of course, or he was in an action sequence, which of course Simu Liu phenomenal in the action sequence.
Yes,
that's in my opinion where he shines the brightest. All the choreography is he's just doing wonders with it. But outside of that, it's so divided between all the other characters. He himself is not given a lot of time to shine. And so I'm excited to see him more in future stuff. But as a first appearance, I didn't feel like I got a huge grip on who Shang-Chi as a 20-year-old guy is.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Yeah, I mean, like I think you brought this up, Tucker, is that going back to especially like Wenwu, this is almost just as much his movie as it is Shang-Chi's.
Yes.
There is a lot of screen time here that is divided between our cast. And I appreciate that, but it like you said, it sort of hinders Simu Liu's journey and characterization as a first outing for Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
We talked about like I said, I really like that first third. That middle third is there's goods and there's bads. There's one big good. Like I said, spoiler review. This is a big spoiler for the movie. Ben Kingsley's back as Trevor Slattery.
Yeah,
and he really just injects some. That basically his entrance on is the injection of like a shot of Nost into this film, into that middle act.
Fast and Furious action.
Fast and Furious for you. But Ben Kingsley is great. He delivers some of the funniest lines in the entire film. That whole thing when they're in the car and they're talking about Planet of the Apes.
It's so funny, man.
All of his lines are the A+ comedic lines.
I mean, I was cheering in the theater when I saw him back. I've always personally I love Iron Man 3. It's one of my favorite Marvel movies. We'll get there eventually as we're reviewing all the movies.
Of course.
I'll be able to espouse my thoughts larger there. Honestly, I didn't know he was going to be in this movie. I didn't pay attention to the red carpets where he apparently was, which, I guess a spoiler for the movie, but they obviously intended it. Whatever. So when I see him on screen and he just is going full on Trevor Slattery and returning to the role, talking about that history from Iron Man 3 and how, I played a terrorist. It wasn't, it's in retrospect, it's a little unsavory, but what are you going to do? That's just a great way to reintroduce him as a bit character. He's not particularly important, and him and his fuzzball Morris, who we of course love. Get your Morris thing. I've got a label Morris back there too.
There's Morris. I got the little plushie. I brought him with me to the theater.
They're fun, and I love the energy that they bring to the film and the charm. But they are kind of just a plot point to get them to Ta Lo.
Yes.
Which I do have a little bit of a problem with in terms of I was excited to see a lot more of Morris. I thought Morris was going to be Shang-Chi's sort of pet sidekick, but it wasn't
that's Aquafina.
So, and of course, neither of them are involved almost at all in that final act. So I can honestly, though, I think it's a positive for the movie to have them in there. Their underutilization, I think, is one of the issues that I have with this film.
Sure. I want to talk about the last third because this. Okay, I want to put Morris back.
Morris section is over. Bye,
Morris
Morris
section. Bye, Morris.
Bye to Morris.
But the third act is where Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings really loses me.
Yeah.
Because and I feel like I'm not the first one to say this. I feel like this is a pretty common complaint, even amongst one of our friends. Very much enjoys this film, but even he admits this, that Shang-Chi and Wenwu's sort of conflict as a father and his son, as a protagonist and an antagonist to the story, gets cut short for a giant monster fight.
Yeah.
Which had no setup until maybe 30 minutes from the end of this film, when it's explained by Michelle Yeoh. And it's really, really disappointing, in my personal opinion.
I agree. I as watching it the second time, I was able to sort of understand the history of Ta Lo a little bit better, and I feel like there's a pretty good sense of place and history and culture there, but it is all funneled into this exposition dump of we exist to stop a big monster from destroying the world, and then the big monster comes out and 10 minutes later it's gone. And that just really does kneecap what is a really interesting fight with Ten Rings ninjas attacking the people of Ta Lo, and Wenwu and Shang-Chi having to have that fight. I think before they cross the lake is more interesting.
Yes, I agree.
When Shang-Chi's like, I'm a killer. Is this what you wanted? And Wenwu saying, "Oh, I know you are scared of me." There's a really great dynamic there.
Yeah, exactly.
You cross the lake, you get some cool fights with the Ten Rings, and then in a giant thing with the lamest possible name, the Dweller in Darkness. That is the most generic, big creature, dumb fucking name ever.
And it is just like out, a Cthulhu thing with wings.
It's got lots of tails.
There's not a lot of interesting character design there.
Souls.
It sucked. But yeah, it's very basic in its. It's not even a thing in the comics. If you know, let us know down in the comments.
Yeah.
But it feels like just like if there was a generic fantasy film that was written by a bunch of guys in a corporate office, this would be the villain of that. In fact, this third act, the latter half of that third act would be the ending of that movie. A dragon that the protagonist is riding versus a giant Cthulhu monster that eats people's souls. Come on.
And look, I don't mind the inclusion of the Great Protector, which is their dragon. I think the idea of having this crazy creature that is the protector of this village, and they sort of have a relationship with it. They get the dragon skills, which are awesome.
Cool.
And make awesome armor and awesome weapons. All that's really interesting. But the Great Protector, and which is another lame name, by the way, just ends up being a thing to take down the other big thing. And it's just a little bit underwhelming. I mean, I can enjoy the gargantuan spectacle of it all to a certain degree, but when this entire movie has been really character focused and dynamic focused, it inserting giant CGI creatures kind of just knocks the wind out of that pacing.
And it, like I said, it cuts short that Wenwu Shang-Chi stuff.
Yes, it does.
Because the conclusion of their sort of intertwined character arc is Wenwu realizes he's been tricked, and then he dies. That's it.
He saves Shang-Chi and then gives him the rings as his soul is being sucked.
Which is a conclusion to that arc. It is not a good one. It is not an interesting one in any way, shape, or form, but it's the ending that they went with. And it's, like I said up top, it's really, really disappointing. And it just feels like the ending goes on for a really long time, and it's not visually interesting either. It falls into a common Marvel trap of being very dark and gray and smoky, which is also
especially unfortunate. Which is especially unfortunate because Ta Lo is one of the most colorful locales we've seen in the entire Marvel Cinematic
Universe. I appreciate that they went for bright colors
and reds and golds and these cherry blossom trees that are in bamboo everywhere. It's just visually appealing, and then the sun goes down, the clouds come out. I don't know. Why does it turn gray?
He gets blasted across the lake to like BVS finale land, where it's dark smoke and rocks.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I think we've got our thoughts about that final act out of the way. The final thing I want to talk about is how this fits into the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Absolutely.
In terms of opening up an entire other corner, an entire other set of history. It feels really fresh because of that. It barely touches on previous history. There's a reference to Iron Man. Of course, Trevor Slattery is an established character, and we knew sort of the history of the Ten Rings before.
There's some blip references,
Yes,
obviously.
there's a couple of background blip references, but on the whole, it's just new. Wong, Abomination, that kind of stuff. But I really like how much stuff they establish in this. I'm excited to see Jia-Ling lead the Ten Rings in a future installment as a villain.
Girl bossing it up.
It's really exciting.
Yeah.
I love the Golden Dagger Club. That's a really great concept of people betting. I was going to say boating, as in boating and betting.
They are not boating.
Betting on essentially metahuman battles. Actually, in a sort of side thing, you see a guy with the extremis virus fight. I don't know if you noticed a Black Widow, one of the escaped
I
Black
thought
Widows
that might be a Black Widow
from Black Widow.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is really cool. And of course, you see Wong and Abomination fight, which is an underwhelming. Thing. I thought it was bigger.
Can we talk about that for a second?
Yeah,
I kind of like that. It's just like a little thing that we don't really know what the dynamic is there. Are Wong and Abomination friends?
Yeah,
is he
calls him Emil, so he knows his real name.
I presume that Wong is bringing him back to the raft when he opens.
If he's in the raft, we don't know.
I like that it brings up more questions than it answers. It brings up a whole host of questions and it answers absolutely none of them. Yeah, I think that's very fun. As a like, we'll probably figure some of that stuff out in maybe Doctor Strange, maybe She-Hulk show. Yeah. We don't know.
There's certain things that they can bring up here. I do kind of like the idea of this sort of very small storyline of the two of them having a relationship in some way.
Yeah, they're just
feeding into larger things. Is if Abomination is on the team that Valentina is building, is that a thing? Does that factor in that Wong has been taking him out of the raft? Is Wong going to be in trouble for that? How big is Wong's role going to be? Because of course he's in the next 3 movies. Big motherfucker Wong.
Yeah, is it? Well, yeah. He's not in Eternals, is he? Or is he in Eternals?
Oh, sorry, no, he's in 3 movies in a row though.
Okay. So we're
Spider-Man. No, I forgot about Eternals. That's the problem. Shang-Chi, Spider-Man.
No Way Home.
Madness. No Way Home, and then Multiverse of Madness.
Okay, we got it.
I'm excited to see more Wong, and of course,
absolutely,
all of that ties in the end credit sequence where Wong takes Shang-Chi and Katie to
out of this bar
or the Sanctorum, whatever it is, and reveals that the 10 Rings is a huge setup for whatever is coming next.
I think it's
unclear, but
Eternals. Is it Eternals? I think it's Eternals. I think it's an Eternals stuff.
The 10 Rings are binging the Eternals?
I think it's Eternals technology because no one really knows what they are.
I like the idea that it's not in their codex.
Right.
The codex that's been worked on for gazillion years.
They have no idea what it is because it's thousands of years old.
Yeah.
I think it's Eternals. Quite honestly, it's the next movie.
Okay.
It's big in the Eternals. Maybe there's a post-credit thing on Eternals that's like we're getting paged by Nick Fury, but it's the 10 Rings. But yeah, I don't know what their role is in that because it's certainly too early for like bringing all these things together for a team up, like a big Avengers style team up.
I do think teases and side characters and cameos and things will be the majority of how this phase is interweaving, and I think it's really exciting.
Yeah.
I love the idea, what happened in the movie of Bruce Banner, who is back as Bruce Banner
as a human again. What the heck is that?
Still screwed up from the snap, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
He's welcoming
and Carol Danvers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Captain Marvel is there as well. I like the idea of him. Bruce Banner welcoming Shang-Chi and Katie to like, this is a shit show. We all know how it goes. Have a good time. And Wong's like, shit's gonna go crazy.
Yeah,
I think there's a really interesting vibe that's cultivated there that makes me very excited for what comes next. Even if this one isn't one of my favorites, there's a lot of things to grab onto here. And I think on future rewatches, as this story and Shang-Chi's story and the rest of Phase 4 is filled out, this one will become retroactively more important in terms of setup. And I'm excited for that.
Yeah, like I said, I don't hate any of the stuff that's going to carry on into the MCU about this film. I love Simu Liu as Shang-Chi.
Yeah.
I think Awkwafina as Katie is a very endearing, fun sidekick.
Ming'er Zhang as Jia-Ling.
Yes.
This is her first feature film, and she was great. She did
pretty good.
Awesome action. I love her relationship with Shang-Chi, and she's going to be another character.
The leader of the girl boss, leader of the 10 rings. I can't wait to see that come back. All of the stuff that's going to carry on into the MCU, I really liked. There was just a lot of like,
Slattery.
Yeah, there's a lot of chaff that this film has that really bring it down for me. I didn't talk about that because I don't want to. Like I said, I don't think it's really important to this film as a thing that's going to carry on into the future universe. But if you want to talk about that with me, if you want me to know my exact thoughts, you should join the Discord. I don't know if we plugged that up top, but that link's in the description.
Yeah, it is.
But Tucker, did you have a theory about the 10 rings technology thing?
Oh,
okay.
No.
Okay, I thought you did. But I think that brings our review of Shang-Chi to a close. Now, Tucker, you brought up
Legend of the Ten Rings.
And yes. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. Tucker, you brought up the possibility of starting to do ratings on each and every one of the movies, regardless of if we're doing an overall ranking like this in the MCU. Because we're not putting this in the our MCU ranking yet. Our good friend Abram is not here. He has not seen the film yet.
We will get to this movie in a
billion years or whatever. I don't know. But Tucker, what is your rating for Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings?
Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings is going to get a 7.8 from me.
Okay. Well, that's funny you say because it's going to get a 6.8 from me.
Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. There you have it, folks. If that means anything to you, do with that what you will. If you think we're idiots for putting it too high or too low, let us know in the comments. Let us know on Discord. Spam us on Discord. Who cares, really? Actually, don't do that. Please don't do that. That's really annoying. You don't want to be that guy. Don't be that guy, pal. But, folks, thank you so much for watching. And we will see you next time.
I'm down, son. It's just a nasty finger.
Don't show your nasty finger to the folks on the internet. They will make Rule 34 of it.